ASMRk. I hope you're doing well. This is my first video where I will be appearing on screen, or the first intro where I'll be appearing on screen. Don't worry, you won't have to put up with my face for the whole video. The stories will be whispered with a black screen as always. I just wanted to say hi and put a face to the voice. Today's stories will be true creepy encounters that I think you're going to enjoy. Don't forget, the video will be better enjoyed, or the stories will be better enjoyed with your headphones in. If you haven't already, please do subscribe so that you don't miss any more creepy content, and leave a like on the video. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into a world of whispers and chills. I moved into this building in September last year. It was one of those old 1960s concrete blocks that had been barely updated since. I wasn't bigger, rent was low, I kept to myself, and most of the other tenants did too. The building had 6 floors, one elevator that broke every other week, and a hallway that always smelled like burnt toast, no matter what time it was. I lived on the 5th floor. There were 8 units on each level, numbered in this weird order that didn't make sense, like 501 across from 504, and no one ever explained why. The first strange thing happened maybe 2 weeks after I moved in. I got home around 10 PM from work, took the elevator up, and as the doors opened on the 3rd floor, I saw a woman standing right in front of them. Not facing them, facing away toward the hallway wall. She was in a dark green coat, hair tied back in a very tight braid. Her arms hung straight at her sides. I thought maybe she was waiting for someone, or just spaced out, but she didn't move as I stepped out to let her pass. I even said, "Excuse me." No response. So I just pressed the button again and went up to my floor. The next night, same thing. Same woman, same position, facing the wall near the elevator. This time, she was humming something, low, like a lullaby maybe. Her chin was slightly tilted upward, like she was listening to something only she could hear. I waited a few seconds, then hit the button and left. The following week, I asked the building manager, old guy named Rick, if she was okay. Maybe she was dealing with something or needed help. He blinked at me like I'd asked him what planet we were on. "There's no woman on the 3rd floor," he said. "That unit's empty." I told him I'd seen her 3 nights in a row. He said, "Which apartment?" I told him I wasn't sure, just that it was always right by the elevator. He gave me this look, like he was trying to decide if I was messing with him or not. Then he said, "Don't worry about it," and walked off. After that, I started taking the stairs, but even then, I'd hear her. That same humming, low, steady, always when I passed the 3rd floor landing. One time, I paused just long enough to listen through the stairwell door. There was no movement, but the humming cut off all at once, like someone had slapped their hand over her mouth. I didn't stick around. Then, one night, I got stuck in the elevator. Power outage. I was between floors, lights flickered, and the car just stopped with this lurch that made my teeth clack. I hit the emergency button. Nothing. Pulled out my phone. No signal. Then, the overhead light flicked back on, dimmer than usual, faint and yellow, like the bulbs were dying. That's when I noticed it. The elevator had stopped right at the 3rd floor. I could see the hallway through the small glass window in the door, and she was standing there again, facing the doors this time, closer than I'd ever seen her. Her coat looked soaked, sleeves dark with wet patches that climbed all the way to her shoulders. Her braid had come undone in places, like someone had pulled at it. But the worst part was her eyes. She wasn't just staring, she was focused on something inside the elevator. I turned around to check behind me. Nothing. When I looked back through the window, she had moved. Only an inch, fog, just a little, like there was heat coming off her skin, even though she looked ice cold. Then the lights flickered again. Off, on, off. When they came back, she was gone. The hallway was empty, and the elevator started moving again. I couldn't sleep that night. I left the lights on, and for the first time in years, I locked my bedroom door. The next day, I tried knocking on every door on the 3rd floor. No one answered. Some of the units had mail piled up under the doors. One had tape across it like it was under renovation. The whole floor fell off, like it didn't belong in the same building. I went back to Rick, told him what I saw, really pressed this time. He sighed and said, "That floor's been half vacant for years. Someone jumped off the balcony back in 2014. 3rd floor, east corner." He said it like it was just a fact, like giving me directions. I asked who it was. He shook his head. "Don't know. Tenant only lived there a month or 2. Never even got the name on the buzzer." I don't use the elevator anymore, but last week I walked by the mailboxes in the lobby and noticed something. Box 307, the one I was sure had never had a name, now had a small label. W. Divine. Slanted handwriting. Looked like it had been written with a marker and old masking tape. I asked Rick if anyone had moved in. He just looked at me and said, "Nope, still empty." I was living in Baltimore at the time, worked night shifts at a bar near the harbour, and took the subway home around 2 or 3 in the morning most nights. The trains ran light that late, maybe 2 or 3 people in a whole car, and most of the stations were near empty, which never bothered me. In fact, I like the quiet. One night, I got off at the Lexington Market Station. It's not the nicest place during the day, but at night, it's a different kind of empty. Fluorescent lighting, litter kicked into corners, echoes stretching a little too long when your boots hit the tiles. I was heading toward the exit when I noticed the ticket booth was lit. Now, that booth's never lit that late, ever, usually just dark glass and a metal shutter. But on this night, it was glowing yellow from inside, and someone was in there, a man in a transit uniform, just sitting. I slowed my pace. There was something odd about the way he was seated. Not unusual, like slouched or sleeping, just like he was sitting too still. His hands were resting perfectly on the counter in front of him, palms down, fingers fully extended, like he was about to start typing on a keyboard that wasn't there. I glanced in through the glass, gave a small nod. He didn't look at me. His eyes were open, facing forward, but not at anything. I remember the shape of his jaw was long and narrow, like it didn't quite fit the rest of his face. The skin around his cheeks seemed off, like it had been powdered too pale, or there was something stretched behind it. I kept walking, but I looked back once before heading up the stairs. He was still in the exact same position, palms flat, unmoving. It stuck with me. I even mentioned it to a co-worker later that week, and they laughed it off, said I was probably just overtired. Except I kept seeing him. Same man, same pose, always in that booth, but only when I came home late. And I started to notice other things. Each time, his face just seemed a little different. Not drastically, but like a wax figure slowly softening. One night, his eyebrows looked painted on. Another night, his mouth seemed just a little too long across his face, and he never moved. I tried staring, waving my hand. Nothing. No other passengers seemed to notice him. One night, I got curious and decided to approach the booth. Rarely walk up to it, not just glance from a distance. I figured I'd ask a question, or maybe just confirm to myself that this guy was real. I walked over and knocked lightly on the glass. He didn't blink, didn't turn, didn't flinch. I looked at the inside of the booth. That's when I realised something strange. There was no reflection behind him. Nothing showed the rest of the platform. Normally, you'd see your own reflection in the glass too, but mine wasn't there. inside of that booth existed in a different light, a different space entirely. I felt the urge to say something. I even opened my mouth, but nothing came out. I stood there, frozen, with this cold feeling creeping up from my stomach, like I was looking at something I shouldn't. Eventually, I backed away and went home. I took the bus the next few nights. Then I convinced myself I was being weird and got back on the subway again. That night, I'll never forget this. The booth was unlit again, dark, closed, but there was something pressed against the inside of the glass. I could see it from the far end of the platform. As I got closer, I realised it was paper. An old, yellowed sheet. Someone had taped it to the inside. It was a missing persons flyer. Black and white photo. Blurry, but just clear enough. It was him. The man in the booth. Same coat, same jawline, same blank stare. According to the flyer, he'd been a station attendant back in 1997. Disappeared mid-shift. The note said he'd last been seen entering the Lexington Market Station just after midnight. Reported missing 2 days later when he didn't show up for his next shift. I stared at the photo, then I looked in the booth again. Empty, no chair, no desk, no figure. Just the outline of where the light used to hang, wires curling from the ceiling like veins. I took the bus again for weeks. Months passed, I almost forgot about him. Then one night, the power went out in my building. I needed to charge my phone, so I went to the 24-hour coffee place near the metro. It was late, probably after 1, and as I passed the entrance to the station, lit only by those dim red safety lights, I saw the booth again. It was glowing, just faintly, and inside, the man was standing. This time, not seated. His palms were still flat on the counter, but he was close to the glass now. And I swear on my life, he was looking directly at me, like he'd finally noticed. I moved into a studio apartment in the Ravenswood area of Chicago last year. Not because I loved it, but because I needed something close to work and cheap. The building wasn't much, just 6 floors, old elevator, mailboxes that didn't quite latch, but it had heat, working plumbing, and I could afford it. The first weird thing happened the night I moved in. I'd just finished carrying up my last load and was heading back down to grab a burrito when I saw a woman standing in the corner of the lobby. I hadn't seen her when I entered earlier, but there she was now, in a long coat, arms at her sides, head lowered. I gave her a nod and a quiet evening, but she didn't move, didn't even look up, just stood there like she was waiting for something that didn't involve me. I figured she was maybe locked out or waiting for someone, so I didn't think much of it. But when I came back in, maybe 10 minutes later, she was gone. Here's the thing though, I didn't pass her outside. There's only one entrance to my building, no back alley, and just a small vestibule and the main front door, which you need a key fob to open. If she'd had gone out, I would have seen her walking away, but she wasn't there. The next night, I saw her again. Same coat, same spot, same posture. She was standing against the same corner of the lobby, by the old radiator near the stairs. This time, she was turned slightly more toward the wall. Again, no response when I passed, no acknowledgement at all. That's when I started to feel it. Not fear, not at first, but a low buzz of discomfort. Something about her felt wrong. Not dramatic or horror movie wrong, just slightly off. Like when you hear someone laugh at the wrong moment in a conversation. Third night, she wasn't in the corner. She was standing directly in front of the mailboxes. I stood frozen by the elevator, because to get to mine, I'd have to walk around her, and she was blocking the entire row. Her back was to me. Her coat had these thin, vertical stripes, and her hair was tucked under a grey knit hat. Her posture was identical to before, still silent. I said, "Excuse me," trying to keep my voice casual, but she didn't budge, didn't even twitch. I stood there for another moment, waiting for anything. Some hint she'd heard me. Nothing. Then I started to walk around her, giving as much distance as I could. I caught the side of her face. It wasn't facing me. It was tilted upward, slightly toward the wall. And her expression, it was a smile. But not to me. Not even at anything. Just a static grin, like it had been drawn on. I didn't grab my mail. I backed away, got into the elevator, and didn't look back. That night, I slept with the door chain locked. A few days passed, and I didn't see her. I thought maybe she was someone's relative visiting, or someone dealing with mental health issues. But then, I mentioned her to my neighbour, Linda, older woman, very chatty, always wearing slippers in the hall. And when I described the woman, she went pale. She said, "You've seen her too." I asked what she meant, and she told me that several tenants, all in the past few years, had brought up the exact same woman. Long coat, always in the lobby, always at night, never saying a word. Sometimes, she said, people would come home and find her already inside, just standing. I asked if anyone ever saw her leave. Linda just shook her head and said, "People usually move out before that happens." That night, I stayed up. I sat by the peephole from midnight to 2 a.m, just watching. I don't know what I expected. Maybe to catch her entering, maybe to finally convince myself I was imagining it. But around 1:30, I saw a shape moving across the bottom of the peephole, slow, gliding. I stood up and opened the door, just enough to look down the hall. No one. I stepped out. Down by the stairwell, the hallway light flickered once, just a blink, and I saw her. Just the outline, her coat, unmistakable, right at the landing. She didn't move, didn't turn. I said, "Who are you?" My voice came out smaller than I meant it to. Still no response. Then she slowly turned, just ahead, toward the stairs. Not toward me, down the stairs. And then she walked, slowly, evenly, down toward the lobby. I waited until I couldn't hear her anymore. Next morning, I checked the building cameras. The landlord keeps them in a locked box in the laundry room, but I know the code. It's posted in the elevator during inspections. I rewound the footage. At 1:30 a.m, there's video of me stepping out of my apartment. You can see me, plain as day. But the hallway's empty. No woman, no goat, no movement. Just me, staring down a hall that no one else was in. I moved out 2 weeks later. I still live in the city, newer building now. Keycard access, bright lighting, front desk that stays staffed all night. But sometimes when I check my mailbox late in the evening, I find the bottom one, the one I used to have, hanging open, even though I haven't touched it in months. And I've seen her once more since then. Not in person, not walking past, but in the reflection of the glass doors, just briefly, the shape of a woman, standing by the mailboxes, not moving,